Hey guys, I just wanted to follow up real quick. Well, probably won't be real. I'll try to make it quick. On the topic I've been covering lately of our past wounds and traumas and how that can rob us of the truth and delay God's promises is what it's titled. I did a part 1 and part 2. This is just kind of like a 2.5, I'd say. It's just I realized I didn't really elaborate a lot on the piece of kind of our natural urge to avoid these things. And we're talking about how the Israelites, you know, were feeling that same way when God first started getting involved and having Moses go to Pharaoh. Pharaoh came down harder on them, so things got worse before they got better. And how, when I was reading that, I really related that to any of these difficult experiences we've had in our life and dealing with them. Growth that God wants to bring us through. It doesn't necessarily have to, you don't have to necessarily identify it as trauma, but any past wounds, anything that has been a struggle in your life, when God wants better for us, when He wants to take us out of that bondage, like He did the Israelites out of Egypt. I feel like that's a common process, is things start to get worse before they get better. And they just wanted Moses, just leave us alone, leave us where we're at. Because, I mean, sometimes too, it's like, no matter how bad a situation is, you've learned to cope with it and you've learned to manage it. And so no matter how bad it is, it's not as scary as the unknown. The unknown is way scarier, even when we technically know it's probably good for us. Just like God was describing the promised land to them, but they were still afraid because it was unknown. And even though they were in this bondage and it was terrible and they were beaten and overworked and all these things, it was their known. So anyway, I just want to share that is common, to just want to say forget it. I think it's really important to point that out, because I'm encouraging people to step into this process with God, to also maybe include a counselor, therapist in that process as well. But especially it's important to have God, because He's the ultimate counselor, but not to leave Him out of the mix. But I'm encouraging people to do that, and I felt like I didn't talk about this enough because it is so common. As a counselor who specializes in trauma, I see this all the time. The agency I used to work for, that was a nonprofit agency, we especially saw this even more so, that like when the counselors, we learned pretty quickly that when we had a new client, it was a 50-50 chance if they would show up. And that's not exaggerating. For the first session, they would often no-show, just out of fear typically. And then often once people do start the process, it's hard to tolerate. And I don't want to say that to scare people, because it's not always that intense, but it's good to just know it can have a likelihood, especially if you've been really repressing things and avoiding and just trying to escape it all for a long time. Those feelings are going to be less comfortable when they start to surface than they ever were, maybe because you've gotten so good at avoiding them in different ways. But you can trust God in that process, I promise you, and just share that fear with Him, share the struggle, share the emotions, and I encourage you to be very open and honest with Him. And the great amazing thing about Him, like I shared in one of the other videos, was like with the Israelites, He knew that He needed to work with them in a sense of like gradually building their faith, gradually teaching them who He was, so that they could step outside of those old beliefs, those things that they were taught through those years of bondage. And He was patient with them. He would, like in the beginning of their process, He was really obvious with the miracles. He like parted the sea right in front of them, like I mentioned before, so they could see the dry land they needed to walk on. As He was working with them on trying to get them to have trust in Him and have faith, through like providing the manna, but expecting them not to hoard it and save it for the next day, but to depend, on Him to provide for them and just trust that He will, and that was a process they had to work. out in them. It's like he'll work these things out in you, but I just wanted to elaborate on it can be hard, and it can, like I said, make things a little worse before it gets better. And I think part of that is because I think one of the reasons he does that is he doesn't want us to be able to keep avoiding it any longer. It's like he's saying it's time. It's time to really deal with this. And it can be frustrating too. I know, like, from even my own experiences, like there's times I think like, oh, I've worked through that and that's taken care of. And then lo and behold, he'll find a way to show me that yes, I've grown in that area, but there's still work to be done. And part of that, I think, is because I think he's just being loving in that, because it's like he gets us to this place, and then to this place of healing with whatever it is. And then we kind of get comfortable there and it feels good, and we kind of just go with the flow in that for a while. He lets us rest is what I feel like, for a bit. But if there's more work, he loves us too much to leave us there. He knows that we can have even better. So even when we think like, oh yeah, it's so much better now, I feel so much better and I behave so much better and this doesn't rule me anymore, and that's great. It's like he knows us so much better than we do, so he knows that deep down there's still some issues there, and that he knows truly there's even better for us, and that's the awesome part. And so then he brings something, a situation, a person, something into your life that then sheds light on that will reveal then, like, nope, it's still there, there's still work for us to do. But I feel like that's how he works. He gives us some space, some time. He let the Israelites wander for a while, in the wilderness, and allowed them to work through that. He didn't just plop them into the promised land and when they weren't prepared, when they didn't have the faith for it. So he allowed them to delay that until they could be there, until they could get there, and so, I just want to say that in case that's, you're like, yeah, okay, I feel encouraged by this and I'm ready to like tackle these things, and I'm signing up with the Lord for this. I just wanted to make sure that I made it clear that just be aware. It can get a little rough. Some rough waters can come with that for a bit, but I promise you that he will remain faithful. And if you stay focused on him and keep your eyes fixed on him and keep seeking his guidance, he will get you through. He will get you to that promised land. And if he's bringing all this up for you, it's because there is better. There is better for you. There is more freedom than you've had so far from whatever that bondage is. And so I just say that to encourage you to keep with it, and that it's also okay to give yourself some breaks sometimes, and recognize, like, my clients, they get very comfortable with telling me, like, often, even ones that are very committed and they show up consistently, they will still often tell me, I really wanted to cancel today. And we just talk about it. And, they can be very open about that. I get it. And we talk through it. And so maybe that session, we don't work as hard. We don't, dive into some of the techniques. Maybe we do just different types of processing that's more surface level. It's always allowing them to guide that process, and so just recognizing that that's okay. There's going to be times when you feel ready to tackle it all and capable, and then there's going to be times when you need to rest some, and to just rest at the Lord's feet, and not be working so hard and not be diving into all this, and that's okay. You're not losing progress when you do that. That is part of the process. Humans don't really progress in a linear fashion like we expect. Like, we think, oh, we go from point A straight to point B. It doesn't really work that way. It's messier with us, and that's just how it is. That doesn't mean that you've gone backwards. If you just need to slow that process down, and you need to take some breaks, I encourage you though to still communicate with the Lord about it all, to still maybe stay involved if you are with a counselor, But just you can just shift the focus to being less intense, those sort of things. So I just wanted to share that because, like I said, I felt afterwards like I don't think I talked about that enough because it's a big deal. It is what, just like the Israelites just wanted to say, forget it. Nope, never mind, not worth it. They did say that. And then several times when they were, following the Lord, they several times said, we want to go back, take us back to Egypt. And even their perception of that started to be a little bit distorted, as they looked back because they were just in this new territory and they were afraid and they were struggling to trust because having those past experiences makes that hard. So anyway, it's normal, it's human nature to want to avoid it, forget about it, turn on your defense mechanisms again, or to run back to Egypt or run back to your bondage, because that's at least known and comfortable. So that if you're feeling that, there's nothing wrong with you, but you can do this. I promise you, if you include God in it, you're going to do more than you can even imagine. If you allow Him to work through you and to flow through you and allow Him in those spaces with you to heal, He'll take you places. That promised land is way better than you have pictured for yourself. He's just awesome that way, I promise you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that and hope that's encouraging to anybody that might be struggling or about to step into that process. And I just hope you guys have a very blessed day. Thanks.